Is the big rotation just starting here? Gold is weakening while Bitcoin is strong, just as has been predicted over the past few days. Now, the big rotation is happening here. Gold leads the way, Bitcoin follows. We have to see if this is already the confirmation. We have massive Bitcoin purchases from the Trumps, massive Bitcoin purchases from Saylor, and the Swiss National Bank, the Swiss Central Bank, which is now supposed to hold Bitcoin in its reserves. We also have some interesting statements from the former PayPal president. But first, I'd really appreciate it if you could smash the like button for me down below for a second. For higher Bitcoin prices, for new all-time highs, it's important that we start gaining traction now. As a small thank you, I'll also show you this great picture that I actually painted as a child. And now we have it here in black and white. Gold is below $4,000. And why is this relevant right now, while Bitcoin is performing so strongly in parallel? Still at the $115,000 mark, not much left to reach new all-time highs. And as what is already, as has often been mentioned here in videos, gold always leads the way and Bitcoin follows after. And this rotation now seems to be playing out right before our eyes. That means if we really already have confirmation here, although of course we still have to wait a bit, but if this really is already the confirmation, then Bitcoin will continue here over the next few months, outperform gold. The gold bugs, of course, have always been happy, always picking out short time frames. Yeah, there were 3, 4, maybe 5 months when gold outperformed Bitcoin, and they were happy about that. Then videos started popping up from some doctors, some gold bugs saying, yeah, Bitcoin's going to crash now, it's over, look here, gold is way, way better. But we always see the same thing. People who criticize Bitcoin, people who take shots at Bitcoin, people who are too fixated on gold, they always end up being proven wrong by Bitcoin. Even though I don't want to talk down gold here, you can definitely have it in your portfolio. We've seen massive purchases from the Trump family who just bought another 1,414 Bitcoin. Absolutely massive. Here's the report as well. Now they're already at almost 4,000 Bitcoin. Max Kaiser also says here, Eric Trump is the employee of the month. And Eric Trump also says here, this is just the beginning. There are still massive things coming our way. And that's exactly what I always tell you. Look at what the big players are doing, what incentives they have. They all have the incentive to pump up the Bitcoin price. Here we have articles about how Trump is restructuring the financial system. The US president is making changes to the financial system with the help of Bitcoin and others. That could be dangerous, writes the Frankfurter Allgemeine here. Well, I see it the other way around, not dealing with Bitcoin, just being against Bitcoin and simply spreading some prejudices here. That's really the danger. The danger isn't having Bitcoin exposure here. The danger is not being in the lifeboat. All the ships is sinking. The lifeboats, the others, they're all leaking too. There's only one lifeboat that isn't leaking, and that's this, Bitcoin. And that's also something Michael Saylor has fundamentally understood here. We can see it now. He did it again here. He bought 390 Bitcoin just as he announced yesterday. And that's very, very important. Now, he didn't dilute his common stock, meaning his main shares, to do this. Instead, he raised all this money with Stripe, Strike, and Strike. And for some people, this might sound a bit, yeah, these purchases might seem a bit meager because, for example, in the past, we sometimes saw purchases of 10,000 Bitcoin, 20,000, even 30,000 Bitcoin, and so on. And now they're only buying about 400 Bitcoin or so. But we have to keep in mind that there was no stock dilution involved here. Basically, even in a very, very negative environment, it's still possible for strategy to keep buying up Bitcoin. In theory, they could do this endlessly. They could even do this if the MNAV is even more compressed. But of course, it's always easier for the seller the higher the MNAV is. I think Metaplanet has now also dropped below the 1.0 MLA line. So these can potentially be new entry opportunities if there's an undervaluation here. This means that the Bitcoin on the balance sheets of treasury companies are now worth less than the actual spot price of those Bitcoin. And of course, a lot of people are jumping back in now. Treasury company hun. But of course, this is not financial advice. No financial advice. The Federal Reserve, the US central bank, is also heading in the right direction. We can see it here, a 98% probability that at the next FOMC meeting in 2 days, we could see interest rate cuts here. Tighten your seatbelts because this could get wild. And as I already told you, it's not just about the rate cuts, but also this here. The potential end of QT and the start of quantitative easing could become relevant here. And that's pretty crazy because more and more big players are opening up to Bitcoin. And now we actually have the Swiss National Bank here. Just think about that for a second, who is now supposed to buy Bitcoin. This is the clip that surfaced at the Lugano Fair, at the Lugano Bitcoin Conference. Here you see members of parliament in Switzerland. Samuel Kroman, check out what he's demanding here. That would, of course, be a massive move.
And we have a different form of political instrument within our direct democracy called the popular initiative. So the referendum is your a defensive tool against politicians doing something you don't like. But if you think politicians are not doing something you think should be done, for example, getting Bitcoin into the constitution of Switzerland and making the central bank hold it, so that's one thing that we are working on right now, then you can collect signatures for a popular initiative, and you need 100,000 signatures. And then you can propose an amendment to the constitution of Switzerland, and everyone has to vote on it.
Also, what he's saying here is very, very interesting because he's calling on the Swiss central bank to buy Bitcoin. That means it's not that they've already bought Bitcoin, but he's basically demanding it and wants to trigger this through a referendum or a vote in Switzerland. And that's what's special about Switzerland. You need 100,000 here. Signatures, and then the people can vote on it if, for example, the politicians aren't doing something they should be doing. Or if you don't like something the politicians are doing, you can, of course, reverse it as well. And you can say, okay, hey, come on, let's collect signatures now against the digital ID so that it gets abolished again, or something like that. Is it realistic that this will go through? Yeah, they've already been in this process for a year or two, I think. I actually did an interview about it with Samuel Cromer. When was that? About a year ago or so? So it's all still in process. I don't think they have the 100,000 signatures here. I think they're still quite a ways off from that. But of course, this is the right direction. And even if they don't reach the 100,000 signatures, just creating awareness here is important. I think that's already pretty important. And we also know that the Swiss National Bank holds MicroStrategy just like now. Here, the Norwegian National Bank has also increased its Bitcoin exposure to 29 million via MicroStrategy. So these are really wild times that we now have companies here, Bitcoin treasury companies that are now being held by sovereign wealth funds. And well, eventually all central banks will probably hold Bitcoin, or there just won't be central banks anymore because the dollar and the euro probably won't exist anymore either.
Our hope is we can help with all of you and many others make Bitcoin the open money network for the internet, or the internet for money, and that we end up moving trillions of dollars a day on top of Bitcoin collectively by connecting Bitcoin in real time, connecting real-time Bitcoin to all of the endpoints that contain money that needs to move money from point A to point B, and building a variety of services. So in that way, Bitcoin will become part of everyday's transaction in the background. But then gradually what we will see happen is a proliferation of wallets, embedded wallets, self-custodial wallets, all kinds of different forms of wallets that will contain stablecoins and Bitcoin. And it's going to become like basically a slow but steady way to make Bitcoin the asset more part of everyday's transactions for billions of people at the same time. And so it's kind of a 1-2 step of the infra, the invisible, fast, real-time, cheap Bitcoin settlements, and then the asset also traveling on top of that network gradually because you've proliferated wallets everywhere and people have Bitcoin.
I love it. Maybe just in the last minute, I'd say if there are any.
So it's definitely very, very bullish here. He says, look, Bitcoin can be the settlement layer for trillions. And here too, a lot will basically happen in the background. So Bitcoin will basically be the first layer here. And on the first layer, second layer solutions will be built again, like Lightning, for example. Or PayPal is also a kind of third layer solution, or even fourth layer, depending on how you look at it. And then Bitcoin would just become part of people's everyday lives. People might use Bitcoin without even knowing that settlements are happening in the background with Bitcoin. That is definitely a very, very excited future. And that's also, for example, what Jack Dorsey says. Bitcoin has to establish itself as a payment medium, otherwise it'll become irrelevant. I wouldn't fully agree with that. Even as a store of value, Bitcoin is a really, really great medium. And now, if you stick Budistani on Bitcoin participation, there's a link coming up for that. 21 Bitcoin. Buy Bitcoin easily. Use a cult Bitcoin code to save up to 20% on fees. And I'll see you. Peace out.